Welcome to Impact on the Ground with Tia. I'm the CEO of a Tech for Good company and passionate about making a difference. This podcast series will dig deeper into what it means to make an impactful change in our society, whether you are individual, charity, social enterprise, company, grant maker, or government body. It's all about collaboration, sharing ideas, and working together. And we are here to talk about how this works in practice. We also focus on the dynamics of those who have resources to give and those who are actually doing the beneficiary work on the ground. Today, the topic is mental health, and I have here two great individuals, professionals from mental health sector. The first one is Jess Borthwick, the service manager at Charities Bristol. And then I have here Dr. Mary Jane Tuckey, who is a psychiatrist and the chair of US Active. And I give now an opportunity for the charities to introduce themselves before we start the conversation. Would you start, Jess? Welcome.
Sure, thank you, Tia. Lovely to be here. Yes, so Changes Bristol is a peer support mental health charity. We run various different activities to connect people in the city, to gain support and benefit their well-being around their mental health.
What kind of size is your operation? What is your turnover and how many beneficiaries you reach in a year?
Yeah, so we have, we're relatively small. We have a team of about 10, and we have, we're currently about 50 volunteers working with us. Our membership is quite large because people can be engaged with us for as long as they want. And so we see fluctuating numbers, but we have over 1,000 people on our books. But typically speaking, we see about an average of 10 people at each of our groups. We run 9 weekly online groups and 6 in-person groups as well. So that's kind of a rough idea of the size of what we're doing.
So are you based in Bristol or is it like a wider operation?
It's just Bristol for the time being, although we're looking at imagining what it might look like to expand into South Gloucestershire and North Somerset. But at the moment, just Bristol. Well, at the moment, online. So anyone in the world can join us.
Yeah. Okay, Mary Jane.
Hi, thanks, Tia. Thank you for having me here today. I'm the chair of a charity called US Active. So we are a smaller operation than Jess's, in fact. A charity that we set up 4 years ago. And the charity is for young people aged 12 to 25 in the northeast of England who have mental illness or are at risk of developing mental illness. And what we do is we introduce the young people to sport and exercise as a means of improving their quality of life, their health, having a bit of fun, maybe just getting an opportunity that they might not normally get. Our idea is not just to do the exercise as in itself, it's to get someone involved in something in their own community that they can then do when the charity is no longer involved with them. So the idea is a sustainable change that the young person picks for themselves that we try and help them achieve.
So what is your kind of, as you said, they are smaller than Jessie's organization?
We're a very small organization. We have 5 trustees, we have 2 employees, we have volunteers to help us. And we started off small because I have a very strong belief that if a thing's worth doing, it's worth doing well. Therefore, you've got to walk before you run. And I wanted to make a difference so that we might see fewer people, but if it then made a difference for them, it was worth doing. So we've probably helped about 300 young people so far. And each year it's growing. And we have a plan to try and double our numbers this year. COVID got in the way slightly. But there's been some advantages and disadvantages of that. So that's our plan. We're growing and hopefully we will get bigger.
Great. So we will get back to the growth plans, a little bit later. But let's talk about the mental health in general. Mental health is in the news every day now since the COVID. And what do you see? What is the state of UK mental health at the moment?
Do you want to go first, Jess?
Sure. Well, I think it's no surprise to anyone that mental health has taken a bit of a battering in this last year. Certainly, people have had their lives turned upside down. They've had to change everything about the way they work, the way they relate. And certainly a lot of people's very established coping mechanisms are no longer available. We work with a lot of people who have a whole range of different mental health difficulties, and many people who are very practiced at doing the work to manage their mental health. And a lot of that just became completely unavailable when we went into the first lockdown last March. And so it's been a huge challenge for a lot of people to reinvent how they engage. And I think particular areas of concern are around people who don't have technical capabilities or equipment. Certainly, if you're not able to join a Zoom meeting or access the internet for whatever reason, that means that you're more isolated than ever. Obviously, this intersects with lots of other challenges around gender and sexuality, or racism and domestic violence. We could go on for a long time, but of course, there's lots of intersecting challenges that play a role here. But certainly what we've been seeing is a lot of people really struggling with isolation, depression. And I think this lockdown in particular, this third lockdown in the cold and the dark, has had a whole new impact on people's well-being. With it being so dark and cold outside, it means that even the few comforts that are left to us around being able to get outside, get some exercise, is limited. And I think that's been really challenging for a lot of our members. So it's been a challenging time. And that said, there's a lot of joys to be had too. There's some unexpected benefits of this time, and people are now better at being connected virtually than they ever have been before. So there are definitely ways that people are learning how to care for themselves in new ways, and we're seeing a lot of resilience come through in our membership, even in spite of the difficulties.
Mary Jane?
Yeah, I agree with all of what you say. I think that it's really good that mental health is in the news all of the time now, because it's changed. It used to be always bad news about mental ill health in the news, but it's actually not that. It's a much more positive, let's get involved, let's recognize it, let's not stigmatize people, let's have parity of esteem between mental illness and physical illness. And all these things are good. My only worry is that we raise awareness without improving services and support. So the worst thing we could do is raise awareness, and then for there to be lots of people with less support than they, that would be wrong. And that's one of the reasons why we started this charity. In fact, we know that 1 in 4 people adults have a common mental illness. We know that 1 in 10 young people develop some form of mental illness. I mean, these are massive, massive numbers. And I've always said that if, mental illness is one of the highest, has one of the highest global burden of disease upon us, up with things like heart disease, but it's never thought of in that way.
Yeah.
And it has terrible consequences for some people. So it's very serious for some people, not always, but so I'm really pleased that it's now on everyone's radar. The challenge now is that we need to do something about it.
Yeah. And of course, I guess, like you said, the stigma is pretty much gone. We've been talking about this now almost a year, like every day. And it's, you can see in media, lots of people who would never talk about any mental health problems, people openly talking about whether it's mental health or maybe they're just struggling, they are admitting that they are struggling, and kind of that helping out kind of other people to also express that, yes, I am struggling too, you know, and stuff. So that is kind of a good thing.
I mean, I wouldn't say the stigma has gone. I think it's getting better.
Okay.
I think there's still a lot of stigma to challenge. And I think this is like this is what I always say, it's about talking about cancer. We never used to be able to talk about cancer. We can now talk about cancer all the time, and it's not a problem. We just need to get to be able to talk about mental ill health in the same relaxed way.
Absolutely.
So come to conclusion that this is at least one positive from COVID, but yes, I'm sure a lot of you know, people need the services more than ever. But what is then the role of charities? I mean, your type of charities, I assume that you're voluntarily funded, or are you supported by local governments, or how do you operate?
Do you want to go ahead, Mary Jane?
So voluntary funded, and I think it's a really interesting point. I don't think charities should do something that, you know, should be provided for by the statutory services. But I don't think that statutory services can just keep going and going and doing more and more and more, and maybe end up doing it badly because they can't possibly meet the needs of everybody. I think that we have to change the way that we look at how services are provided and collaborate and share. And a bit like what Jess does, you know, there's things that her organization can do that they do much better than anyone else. So therefore they should be doing it. With regard to our charity, we're doing something that people don't do. We all know that physical fitness and physical health is important, and we know that it protects you against mental ill health. I think everybody thinks it's a good idea, but the services that I know exist around our region don't have the resources, or they have got they've got so many other things to be doing. So it's I think it's a role that isn't being provided by anyone else, should be provided, and it's perfectly right to be done with a charity.
What do you say about how you define yourself? Because you were talking about exercise, young people, kind of physical activity, building your mental health. So if it's youth and exercise, would it be easier to sell the concept to the funders?
Yes, so I think that's exactly right. So the reason that we chose the age group that we chose was that the evidence is that the earlier you help people, the better it is for them in the long run. So you get more, you know, you'd be more impact. That's not to say that older people wouldn't benefit from this as well. They would, but like everything, we had to start somewhere. And I have visions of it becoming bigger and wider, but, you know, start somewhere and do that properly. And yes, so I think that's right. It's it also, physical exercise is very much in the news, and we've got to help ourselves. So the government is very much saying to us, you know, we can't do it for you, you've got to do it for yourself. So I suppose we're sort of, it's a good time to be starting this kind of work.
So Jess, what is your message to your beneficiaries? You have different age people attending or being your members?
Yeah, so we work with people over the age of 18, and it's really quite broad after that. And I really agree with what Mary Jane was saying about the importance that there's a distinction between voluntary sector and statutory services in terms of the roles that they play. I think sometimes when statutory services are struggling for funding, there can be a kind of instinct to try and pass things over to the charity sector. And over again, through my career in the charity sector, I've seen voluntary sector organizations and charities picking up a much higher level of risk that statutory services simply can't hold because there's a lack of funding in the sector. And that's concerning. And I really feel that charities, as you said, Mary Jane, can fill a place, can do things that statutory services cannot and should not be doing. So our work is to provide peer support, and I think that's the real beauty of our work, is that it's non-hierarchical, it's non-clinical, peer-to-peer, people with lived experience of mental health difficulties or mental illness, supporting other people. which has myriad benefits, and they're well documented now. There's been quite a lot of research into the value of peer support. And that's something that simply, isn't necessarily practical or appropriate in a statutory service. So it really does need to be done by charities. So yeah, I'm not sure if I answered your question about message.
But this is very, yeah.
Don't mind me interrupting there. Just and I think that it has to be done by people that do it well, because there is because peer support has become a good thing in the last 10 years. When I first started as a psychiatrist, it was never heard of, and it's really a ridiculous thing to suggest, but actually, it's funny how things change. But you've got to be careful that these statutory services aren't just paying lip service to having a peer support worker tacked onto the end of their team. And so I think that's the other key, is that doing it properly is the key.
Yeah, and
Absolutely.
also I guess the kind of responsibilities here as well. That if you run activities with volunteers, what is the responsibility they can bear of the people that they work with. So there has to be a very strict line. They are volunteers, not professionals. With
very clear about, we're not providing treatment for anybody.
Yes, yeah.
Certainly not stopping anyone accessing anything that they require with regard to treatment or the psychiatry or whatever it is. This is something in addition, and the people that work with us are volunteers, and they have a little bit of training, but they're not professionals, and they have to act almost sometimes like members of the lay public. If something goes wrong, do what you would do normally, ring 999 or go to the hospital. So making sure that you don't cross that line and be sort of quasi nursing interventions, which is not right.
Yeah, absolutely. And we put a lot of emphasis on reminding our volunteers that they are just that, and that their role is to deliver peer support, not to be a therapist or a psychologist or whatever else. And I think that's the thing. We've had 17 years of practicing this model, and so we've come to be experts in peer support, which means that we know where the lines are and how to provide support for volunteers so that it doesn't cross over. We have a really robust system of supervision and support and mentoring, and we're very clear about who holds the safeguarding risks, because it can, as you say, the lines can blur so easily, and it's really important that we hold that carefully.
So do you get any company support from companies, any corporates support, or is your activities funded by a grant like trusts and foundations?
Well, we've got a collection of funding, and a very generous funding from the Barber Foundation, which is the people that make the jackets. We're actually based in South Shields, and Dame Margaret Barber, who chairs that company, has been very generous with regard to donations to our charity. But the rest is from there's a community foundation that helps us. There's bids. We have a fundraising committee. Yeah. So I'm always badgering my friends to do various things that they always like doing in the end. But so quite a few different funding streams. We got a grant from a friend of mine at the university, which was nice as well. So lots of different places. And some of the interesting things is that you can't really bid for, you can't make bids for things until your charity is established.
Yeah.
So it's difficult when you start up, but we're now getting into the swing of it, and things are looking up. We recently were very successful with the crowdfunding project, which is the first time we'd done it. We were really pleased with that. So lots of different ways.
Yeah. So why should some companies support you, and why is this Barber supporting you? What could they gain from you or learn from you? Do you have some expertise that the companies could maybe use within their own staff, or somehow utilize your knowledge?
Well, I think what's interesting is people donate to charities because they are philanthropic and want other people to succeed, and that's great. Some people donate because they want something back from you, Not everybody, certainly, and certainly that's not been our experience. But I think it's a really interesting question, is actually joining that back up, the people that have helped us produce this charity. What can we give them back? I think it's quite an interesting question. Maybe that's something we should actually go back and be asking these people. For me, it would be around the kind of stuff that we're delivering for the young people. Is that something that organizations need to be doing it for their staff? You know, it's not just about
yeah, that kind of came to my mind. I'm not, because I don't believe that companies are greedy at all, and they don't think about like this actively. So that's not my suggestion. My suggestion that maybe they could be thinking, because we are people in companies as well. Yeah, they have children, and probably their children could use your services, and they could benefit from the same model and stuff. And then you would be maybe even making good money by selling your services and then giving it to free for your beneficiaries. So just kind of like thinking about like an economic arrangement, if there are mutual benefits. And I guess also what companies are looking for is, of course, that kind of a sense of purpose and kind of proof of delivering social value, so that their staff can feel good about themselves, because everybody wants to help the staff and they want to know that their company is actively involved. So some kind of like a counter activity, even though it wouldn't be like a transaction per se. But that was just came to my mind, that if there is, it just seems that everybody needs exercise to stay healthy, also like mentally. So I'm sure that companies have lots of employees who could be benefiting from the methods. So maybe something like that could come about in the future as a counter offer, and then you just have to charge a lot for your services.
I think it's a really interesting point, though, isn't it? So we're happy to take, but we have to think about what we give back. Yeah. And I suppose we're thinking about the giving back at a different place, but actually looking after the people that help us.
Well, just a rough idea. What about Jess? How about you with the company support?
Yeah, so we have a fairly diverse funding streams as well. At the moment, it's about 50% grant funded and 50% of our own generated income. We have a fundraising committee who are very active and very engaged. They're doing all kinds of different events, everything from poetry nights to comedy gigs to quizzes to, I don't know, I think there was a Bristol to Bath lungeathon being thrown around as well. So lots of different events taking place as well, as best we can at the moment. We do have a little bit of funding from the NHS as well to support low-level mental health needs in South Bristol in particular. And we are developing relationships with some corporations and businesses, and largely that looks like us delivering training for them. Yeah. So we're able to support them with mental health support, and particularly right now, there are some needs that these businesses have around managing their employees to support their mental health while they're working from home. So we can deliver some training around that kind of thing to support the businesses as in exchange and as part of a partnership with them, which helps to support the other work that we do as well.
Sorry, that's very interesting aspect, and I'm very happy to hear that you have these kind of conversations going on. And to be honest, it's not just as like a financial transaction, what you need, but what I've heard that companies struggle at the moment with their staff, because the HR department, they should be offering support, but it wasn't necessarily always needed amongst all the people. But now it's just the need is much higher, and suddenly in lockdown and online services, you would be needing to offer some kind of support, and you don't have the systems in place in that at least quantity that before. So I'm sure that there is more demand, of course, now, but even in the future. So Jess, I think you mentioned earlier something when we were having discussion, that your concept is very well kind of licensable, or you could just like scale it to other cities? So have you documented it somehow? Is there like a method with this peer-to-peer support that you could be kind of franchising?
Well, so we're not the first changes. The first changes is in Stoke-on-Trent, and our founder of Changes Bristol had moved from Stoke and moved to Bristol and was looking around for something similar that would support people's mental health, and basically eventually went back to the original organization and asked if it would be possible for them to franchise and develop a Bristol chapter. So that's what we are. As I mentioned, we're a franchise, so we're not governed by the same trustees or even their policies. We're based on their model, and we use some of their original material that they developed, but we've kind of branched off and developed our own work as well. So it's entirely possible that other cities could develop peer support networks. And I think what's been so exciting through the coronavirus pandemic is that we've seen a tremendous surge in peer support coming from every corner of the country in the form of mutual aid groups, where we see neighbors taking care of one another, picking up groceries or medication, or mowing lawns, or just kind of taking care of one another in a more tangible way. And I think that energy is really exciting, and really there's a lot of potential in harvesting that energy to continue it going forwards, so that people feel more supported by their communities, especially in a time of such isolation. So yeah, I think there's lots of opportunity for people to take the model elsewhere, and certainly it seems that there's a lot of enthusiasm for that, which is exciting.
Well, that's very exciting, definitely. And of course, it comes naturally to people, or should come, this kind of peer-to-peer support. I mean, we are humans after all, and we are kind of meant to live together and help out and so on. But in terms of any professional environment, like if we talk about company life, and if company employees are kind of expected or would like to be each other's support, of some kind of guidance could be in place, because there are also boundaries, because it's a work life. It's not the voluntary friendship where things go naturally. There has to be like boundaries as well, and some kind of like kind of a guideline that what is kind of the support, what you should be giving, and what is then something that maybe it's outside of kind of the company time. Absolutely. So that kind of definitions could be probably very helpful for companies, and training programs and that kind of work that you'd be using your expertise to help it.
Exactly. Sorry, Tia.
Oh, sorry.
Some of the work that we've been looking at, some of the training programs that we've been looking at developing, is to support companies to develop a peer support network internally, and we can deliver some training to give them some structure and some boundaries, and basically to share that model, but internally within companies, so that there's support. And I think now, when so many people are working from home, even having a little buddy system can be so valuable. So that's what we're looking at developing as well, which is fun.
Mary Jane, could you tell a little bit more about the exercise bit? I mean, you said that you help the young people to get into exercise, but what is the method if somebody's not really into exercise? Or do you have like some kind of a system how you work?
Yeah, well, we've learned as we went along. So when we first started, we thought we might put on some activities and ask young people to join us. And then we realized that's a really bad way of doing it. The best way of doing it, which is what we do now, is we meet with so the young person is referred to us from wherever. Anyone can refer to us. There's a website. It could be for, themselves, their parents, their teachers, anyone. Try and make it as easy as possible. We meet with a young person, we find out what it is that they're interested in, and then try and work around that. So we've had some mainstream stuff, like people wanting to get fit in the gym or learn to run or that kind of thing. But we've had some really much more interesting, a young man who worked with us wanted to do archery. So we had to source that, and we found that, and we now, we're now firm friends with the archers of the area. Horse riding, ice skating, swimming. It doesn't matter what it is. Any exercise is good. And it's very interesting you say that, Tia, that some people are more ready to engage than others. And sometimes it's just a question of going for a walk around the block is a big deal, and getting out of the house. And actually, that can take weeks. But that's okay. There's no pressure, there's no time. And I was just talking to one of our employees today, who said that sometimes it's a bit disappointing because people say they want to do something and then they don't. And I said, well, that's life, and we're all a bit like that. We might think we want to do something, but then we don't. So we try to make it as easy for people to engage as possible. But for some people, it won't be for them, and they'll decide against it. But that's okay. But for many people, it's worth persevering. I think what we were trying to say was that we know the benefits of exercise, but sometimes it takes you a while to get into it before you realize the benefits of exercise.
Yeah.
So once you realize the benefits of it, you're kind of there, aren't you? So our job is just to try and facilitate. We're certainly not going to make anyone do anything they don't want to do.
Yeah.
But that's the role.
But I guess, it's not only with your beneficiaries, this dilemma. Any young people, they try things and they don't like it, and then they do this and they want that hobby and stuff. So there's nothing strange about it, that not everybody's, interested in everything. And
enough, I've never run a marathon.
Yeah, well, how many hobbies have been tried and done it a little while, and then they're not interested, and so that happens. And of course it happens with your beneficiaries as well. But I guess the thing is that people have a chance to try something, they're doing something new, getting out of their comfort zone, and then maybe finding their own path, for the exercise, or kind of for their hobby and that sort of thing.
And the other thing is the benefits of the sort of socialization aspects.
Yes.
Being able to do what other people do, sort of for some people it's quite difficult to go into a group.
Yeah.
And that would be impossible to start with. So we always start with one-to-one things, but then we try and get people, if they want to go groups. And then there's all the benefits of that. And we've got a group of young men, young boys, who it's now 6 of them, who all go to a gym at the same time. And I wouldn't say much. It's a really lovely group who have some things in common, and they otherwise wouldn't have met.
Yeah, yeah. And that has can have a so long impact on your life, or actually can change your life forever. These kind of youth friendships and belonging, and getting into healthy lifestyle, and that is impactful. So I guess what I'd like to say here, anybody who's listening, on the supporter side, who might be a volunteer or company offering some funding, fundraising, grant maker. So it's not only always about the size of the organization or how many beneficiaries. It's not about numbers. As you speak in charity sector, it's not about outputs, it's the impact, what you're making, and these kind of one-on-one sessions or peer-to-peer. It might seem that only a couple of tens of people somewhere, but it can be transforming somebody's life, which means that then it has an impact worth tens of years of in that person's life, and also everybody who's around the person. So these impacts can be very great, and I strongly recommend people to consider supporting very small organizations. But Mary Jane, you said you wish to grow. So what do you need for growing from any individual or company or grant maker?
I need 2 things. I need more young people to use the service.
Oh, you have a beneficiary, need for more beneficiaries. Yeah.
That's the most important thing, because without those young people, there would be no point in it. And then I need money to be able to make that happen.
Yeah.
And it's very simple. It's like most things, isn't it? It sounds really simple. It's much more complicated in reality.
Yeah.
I also want to be able to have enough money to run the charity so that it's professional and, you know, does all the things it's supposed to do. It doesn't spend all the money on doing that, but it's really interesting setting up a charity that you have to have all the things in place to make a business run.
Yeah.
And that, however tiny you are, and all the safety and all the stuff like that. And that's, when you start off, seems to be a big bit of what you've spent your money on. And we're very lucky in the fact that we've managed that quite well. But that's an important thing to keep. I never realized that about charities. And
Yeah.
you'd hear that, oh, they spend all their money on, you know, why have they got so many employees, that kind of thing. You can't do a job well unless you have the infrastructure and the administration. I'm not saying that's the most important bit, because the most important bit is the beneficiaries. But that's what I need. I need to be able to have more young people and the money to provide some excellent facilities, but to also run it.
Yeah. What about any companies? I mean, you mentioned these exercise hobbies and stuff. Do you need like free donations, gym memberships, or I don't know, free horseback riding?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. I think maybe you should come and work for us. And
I don't know, paragliding, you know, yeah. But yeah, so anybody listening, if you have a company who has opportunities for you know, younger, you know, youth, you know,
park down the road, maybe we could get some free memberships for that.
Hey, where was exactly you know, your location?
So we happen, it's all virtual, obviously. We happen to live in Newcastle upon Tyne,
Yeah.
but we cover the whole of the northeast. So we're sort of gradually, we'll go wherever we can go.
Yeah. So your beneficiaries are also, you know, kind of in a broader geographical area.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. What about Jess? What do you need in order to grow? You said you want to expand.
I think a big piece of it is awareness, actually, for us. We need people to engage with us and remember that we're here. And that's partly so we can achieve our charitable aim, but because it's peer support, positive engagement breeds positive engagement.
Yeah.
So when someone comes and makes use of the space, that makes the space more open and more available to other people. So there's a positive feedback loop. So awareness is a really big piece. People knowing about us, people using our services. But equally, as Mary Jane was saying, funding never hurts. People are often grant makers are really excited to fund the sparkly projects, but no one wants to fund keeping the lights on. And we need to keep the lights on to do the projects. So that core funding is really crucial when it comes to delivering and growing the work we have to do. So yes, that's it really.
And that's, I guess, something I could like finish this with, that there is some kind of a misconception sometimes within well, individual support and company support, that people are saying that, oh, we don't want to fund admin costs. And like you said, you know, when you talk about people's lives and mental health and stuff, you know, admin is very important, that you have things in place. You have to have safety things in place, you know, whether it's data safety or other safety things and stuff. So, you know, kind of taking care of the, you know, those structures in the charity is super important, because like in your organization, you can do a lot of bits with volunteering then as an activity, the volunteers, but you cannot build softwares and stuff necessarily, get everything for free, and that kind of admin people to, you know, work for you for free, and you need to manage your operations well. So that's something that, you know, all the voluntary, you know, funders should be understanding, that if an organization don't have any admin structure in place, then you shouldn't probably fund them. You know, that's exactly the opposite.
And they won't be able to survive. So
yes,
that's it's tricky, but you have to be honest about what it is that you're trying to do.
Yeah. Well, thank you for this conversation, and I wish you both and both of your organizations very good luck and bright future, and lots of scaling and lots of new beneficiaries. Sounds very great. Mary Jane, where can people reach you? How are you found? Are you on LinkedIn, or how can people reach you?
We have a website and also by email. So the email is info@usactive.org.uk and the website is www.usactive.org.uk. So they're the ways to reach us.
Jess?
We have a website, which is changesbristol.org.uk, and we also are active on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn. If you just search Changes Bristol, you'll find it. And we're always really happy to hear from people, so do get in touch.
Yes, I should really have said we're also on those things because I'm so old, you see, I forgot to mention Instagram. But you will find us there.
Yeah, good. Yeah, good. Okay, thank you very much. And yeah, have a nice rest of the winter. And yeah, let's be in touch. And both of your charity profiles will be found on whatimpact.com. Okay, thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Tia.